This is the Hector, Tier 9 Commonwealth ship, newly available with this patch through the Research Bureau in the Armory. This is a ship that I've been asked about quite a lot. It's a ship that I purchased and played in its release form because I knew that there would be questions about it. I personally do not think that this is a ship for everybody. I think that a lot of people will struggle with its low survivability and will be blapped whether they're in or out of smoke. Crawling smoke is extremely powerful, but also very easy to misplay. We'll talk a little bit about that. You can see my build. I've gone main armaments modification 1, engine room protection. Smoke generator modification 1 is a coal upgrade that increases the duration of my crawling smoke. Steering gears mod 1, concealment system mod 1, and main battery mod 3. There's a reasonable argument for gun fire control to get extra range, but I personally would rather shoot faster and control my range myself. I have changed out the defensive AA fire that is default for the short-range hydroacoustic search. I was asked about this on stream, and I do think that this is the right choice. A couple of things to notice about the characteristics of Hector that maybe will inform your play. The main one is that your air defense is quite lackluster. Yes, you would think that these are small guns, maybe even dual-purpose guns, but in terms of DPS as well as explosions from flak, you're just not going to get that much out of your AA defense. I get fortunate in my game that I'm going against a tier 8 aircraft carrier, but if I were going up against a tier 10 or tier 11 aircraft carrier, my anemic AA might as well be non-existent. And that is one of the first disadvantages of the Hector that leads into the other conversation, and that is that tier 9 ships are not in as strong a place in the lineup as they used to be. You can face tier 8, tier 10, and tier 11 aircraft carriers, and all of those will make your life miserable because this is a light cruiser that tries to control its concealment. You will meet tier 8 and tier 10 submarines, and tier 8 in particular is a tier where you have a lot of carriers and submarines at the same time. When you have ships like carriers and submarines that can change the rules of your detection, you will definitely feel the difference. And for those games, you might find that Hector is constantly spotted, forced out of its own effective range, and maybe even killed outright faster than you would like it to be. Hydroacoustic search, even at short ranges, ends up protecting you while you are in your smoke against torpedoes. Remember, while you are in smoke, you are a torpedo magnet, and you will spend a lot of time in smoke, especially if you've built out your ship the way I have, with a coal-based smoke improvement in ship modifications, a flag-based smoke improvement, and also captain-based smoke improvements. So I've taken the tier 1 skill for survivability, last stand. I've taken the tier 2 skill, consumables enhancement, to increase the duration of my smoke. I've taken the tier 3 skill, superintendent, for more smokes and more heals. And I've taken the tier 4 skill, concealment expert, for 10% better concealment. Concealment for this ship was changed right at launch. You might see some videos that are posted with the pre-launch concealment, which was much more forgiving than the at-launch concealment. With all modifiers from captains and ship modules in play, you can get down to 9.4 kilometers in concealment, which is quite nice. It's still very reasonable distance to play with between your concealment and your weapon systems. For offense, I've gone with the heavy HE and sap shells, which I rarely suggest for a cruiser. Notice here I get extra HE damage, and the cost is additional detectability, but only if I have a battery caliber of 149 millimeters or above. And Hector has destroyer guns, 133s, which means the usual penalty for this skill does not apply. I've gone with the Adrenaline Rush, which is classic. Maybe you could think of something else to do with these points, but in general, this is a great choice. With a small health pool like Hector, you might decide that Survivability Expert is worth it. I went with a little bit more damage. And then finally, Inertia Fuse for HE shells. This is one of those boats where the Inertia Fuse, IFHE skill, is extremely important. Without IFHE, your guns will only penetrate 21 millimeters of armor when firing HE, and you will be mostly firing HE. 21 millimeters of armor, if you examine the armor profiles of nearby ships, is not going to be enough to overcome bows, decks, or sterns. You will overcome a lot of 16 millimeter plating in the superstructure, but that limits your ability to set fires to a variety of different points on the ship, and it limits how much impact damage you can do. Realize that you have a lot of shells, and they're going to just be spraying all over the enemy ships. They're fairly floaty. They're not laser accurate. And so IFHE gives you impact damage against a much broader profile of the ship by adding 6 millimeters of pen, so you have a total of 27 millimeters of HE pen instead of 21 millimeters. 27 millimeters will get you over the bow, stern, and even some deck thresholds. So it's a very important skill, I think, for Hector. If you go back, you can see that I've done something here that I almost never do, and that is that I have not taken the accuracy mod, I believe it should be here, aiming systems. Jetty is a big fan of aiming systems, but in this case, when it competes with smoke generator modification, and the gimmick of this ship is a crawling smoke, I'm going to take every opportunity I can to boost the duration of that crawling smoke. I'm going to trust in volume of fire instead of accuracy of fire. And because these are destroyer guns, you'll notice in the game that my aiming systems doesn't cost me that much. I'm spraying all over the target. I'm benefited with IFHE to penetrate most of those places, and I don't really miss the aiming systems. Your mileage may vary. So this is a strongly smoke-favored build. A couple of characteristics that are noteworthy. Torpedoes to 10 kilometers. 62 knots isn't the fastest, but 10-kilometer torpedoes means that you are torping right about the range of your detection, and if you are bow out and kiting away from the enemy, which you should almost always be doing, you will score hits without being detected, much like a Japanese cruiser would. Small guns, but a lot of them. 7 turrets, 2 barrels per turret, 14 guns total. They are itty-bitty guns, but with IFHE, you will pen with HE all over the target, setting fires, and your AP should not be discounted. A lot like Atlanta, which can switch to AP if the target is already on fire, or if you have clear shots into the upper belt or the superstructure. AP will do a lot of damage, and if you are ignoring this element of your armament, then you are missing out.